Welcome, everyone, to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is Riana Milne. Did I get that last name right, Riana?
Riana Milne.
Riana Milne. She's a certified global life and love trauma recovery coach, a certified clinical trauma and addictions professional, a certified mindfulness coach, the #1 best-selling author, the host of her podcast called Lessons in Life and Love, an educational speaker, licensed mental health counselor for over 21 years, and currently living in Palm Beach County in Florida. Riana, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
You're welcome. I'm doing great. And we were just talking about it's a little cold in Florida, but hey, you can't complain too much.
Yeah, no, listen, I love New York, but yes, I wouldn't mind eventually having a winter place in Florida, whether I'm renting or living there or buying. That's the goal for the future. So, Rihanna,
There you
tell us a
go.
little bit about yourself. What was your journey like to become a certified global life and love trauma recovery coach? What was that journey like for you?
Well, I always wanted to be a counselor. I know from the age of 16, one of my best friends was killed by a drunk driver. I had asked to go to counseling for grief. And my mom said, no one in this family will ever go to a counselor. So I
Mm,
said in defiance, and I will grow up and become one. And that's how that began. So I did go to school for broadcast communication and my master's degree in counseling. So I still have my counselor's certification and licensing. However, I decided to become a coach because I really like the solution focused
yeah.
approach. In other words, people don't want to keep saying how they feel about something, they want answers. So that's the coaching model, the educational model, where I actually help teach them how to move forward from bad breakup or hard divorce, something like that. It is proven that 100% of us have childhood trauma, something I never heard about in my triple master's in psychology. And after I went through my second love trauma, my ex said at the time, I don't know what's the matter with me. I sabotage everything I love. And I said, I don't know either. By then, I'm a therapist. My mind is going through the DSM-4 of psychology.
Yeah.
Nothing was explained from his behavior. So then I went in to do the research. And I found that past childhood experiences, and there were many of them, but as I went through all my experiences as a school counselor, a mental health counselor in hospitals, working in a drug and alcohol facility, one for teens, one for women from the prison system, they all had the same type of childhood traumas, no matter their ages, their races, their culture, where they grew up around the world. It was amazing. So I started talking about this work in 2015. I did come up with a childhood trauma checklist in 2012 and have been working with clients healing past childhood and love trauma ever since.
Wow, that's some journey. And today's topic is about unconscious childhood and love trauma, how it impacts dating. And so when you do your counseling and your coaching and you talk to young women or older men or whatever it may be in terms of the combination of the two, was it that the parents just didn't know how to love a child? If my question makes sense, because when I was younger, I grew up with my grandparents. I
Mm,
didn't know until
that's one
maybe,
trauma right there.
yeah. So yeah, exactly. So anyway, when I found out that, yeah, my mother and father are right in next door, I'm like, well, what happened? How come I wasn't raised with them? So that definitely had an impact. Um,
Yes.
Going forward, I realized that it was a blessing in disguise, man, because unfortunately, when my mother and father separated and divorced, my sisters went with my mother, my brother went with my father. I was still with my grandparents. And to this day, I always say, thank God that happened. Now, I'm not going to
Oh,
lie, the first 30 something years, any relationship I had, I was out of there. If I felt love from the woman, I was like, oh, no, I got to go. So again, are we blame?
so it'll be easier, Will, if we go into what are the top 10 traumas so people
Yeah, please.
understand what that is. Because just mentioning, you had a couple of them there. But again, we all can probably identify one to four. sometimes 6. Many times people can identify 8 or 9.
Wow.
So before I tell you those, I want to preface that childhood trauma goes through at least 3 generations. So if we identify it in us, our parents had it, and so did their parents. And also, again, to realize that 100% of us have childhood trauma. That fact came out in 2021. Now, when I was doing my work, I could identify 90% of people could identify, yeah, they had trauma with the numbers that I could reach at that time. But since COVID, we've all been impacted by one of the traumas is called community trauma. So that means 100% of us has been impacted. Okay. So the first one is if you grew up with anyone who had any addiction. So I'm also an addictions counselor. So there's 12 that I name: drugs, alcohol, sex, meaning you knew your parent was a cheater, porn, gambling, hoarding, spending, eating, gaming, TV watching, workaholism, and social media or computer addiction. I
Right.
say addiction to the machine. So that could be gaming, computers, phone, that kind of thing. So that's number one. Number two is verbal messaging. How did your parents or grandparents talk to you? Were they yelling a lot? Did they yell at each other? Did you hear the words, I love you? Did you hear compliments or did you hear put downs? Were you yelled at a lot? This verbal messaging really adds to your sense of self esteem. So if it was rough on you and you didn't get compliments or hear the words, I love you, many people grow up feeling less than, and that's from verbal messaging. Number three is emotional abuse or neglect. Number four is physical abuse, any kind of hitting,
Yeah.
rape or molestation. Again, these could happen inside or outside of the home, these experiences. You could have a perfect family life and you get bullied all the way to school. Okay, so it's childhood experiences in general. So that's the number four. Number five is around abandonment. So there's 2 types: fault and no fault abandonment. So a no fault abandonment is a parent that happened to die early or someone that had to leave the family to go fight for war for their country. That's a form of leaving, but it wasn't their fault.
Yeah.
And another one would be traveling a lot to support the family. And my dad was an FBI CIA agent. We didn't know it as a family. So I
Wow.
was always asking as a kid, where's dad? Is daddy coming home? And my mom was there. Well, I don't know where he is. And that's how we grew up, very unsure where the person was. Then there's fault abandonment, which means you never saw your child. You saw your child up until there was a breakup and then sporadically, or you could even have been in the home and there was no emotional connection.
Mm.
So the parent didn't go to the school activities or sports or whatever. Okay, the next one is if you grew up in foster care, if you had to go live in another person's home, even grandma or aunts. That's why I said that's one,
Yeah.
when you name that. Um, and those are, and if you were adopted. So adopted, foster care, or had to live in another person's home. That's
Sure.
number 6. Number 7 is personal trauma. Many can identify with that. That's if you felt different in any way. So if you're identified as ADHD in school, or you're the only African American in an all Caucasian school, or you were coming out as an LGBTQ teen and family and peers didn't accept you, all these things add up to personal trauma where you felt different or excluded or not good enough.
Right.
Number 8 is around siblings. Your sibling could have been born with a medical issue that commanded more of mom's and dad's time. The sibling could have bullied you, or they could have been perceived as the golden child, the favored one. So the star athlete, the better student, the more handsome or beautiful child.
Right.
Okay, those are just some examples. Trauma 9 actually has 2 parts now. Number 11, I had to bring back into the top 10 because that was community trauma. When I made this list, there was not a lot of community trauma. Now that involves COVID, our mass shootings, our school shootings, Mother Nature events, floods, fires, hurricanes that wipe out huge community. This is actually one of the top 1 or 2 of the full 10 today. That impacts the family. So that's the other part of 9.
Mm.
So, family going through poverty issues, loss of home, flood, fire, whatever. um, a parent being incarcerated, growing up in a dangerous neighborhood, or you always heard like lack messages. We don't have money for this, or we can't pay the gas bill. Those kind of messages really mess with your head when it comes to business and entrepreneurship. Okay. And then the last one is mental health issues in mom or dad. Me being a part of the baby boomers, we didn't see our family, mom and dad, go to counselors. That was like unheard of. So we kind of have to guess. And the hardest two for kids to navigate around, the first one is called borderline personality disorder. And that is quick temper and real erratic moods. So when they're good, they're great, but when they're bad, they're horrid. And the kid never really knows what they're going to get. Then the other one is bipolar, which is manic depressive. So depression can show up as acting out, it really yelling in anger, um, really emotional escape, or extreme fatigue. And the manic phase, people think that's the high and happy one. Well, that could occur, but then usually there's a crash into depression afterwards, like a spending spree or a gambling binge, and they win, and then they think they can win more, and then they lose a whole lot more. So it's that manic depressive, again, leaving the child very anxious. So those are the top 10 childhood traumas that I defined in 2012.
Yeah, I definitely could relate to the abandonment issue that you mentioned earlier, because that's how I felt again as I got into my
Yeah,
20s and early 30s. And then when I spoke to my mother about it, she explained what happened. She said, "Oh, I was
right.
16, I just wasn't ready, and it doesn't mean I didn't love you." But like you also mentioned, hey, I never heard the words "I love you." I never got the affection. So,
Right.
and it's funny though, Rihanna, because I've been an affectionate man. I love touching and holding a woman's hand or whatever, but I never got that as a child. But I always
Yeah.
had that in me. So when it comes to dating, um, if something happens that it triggers you, especially let's say the abandonment issue, or you didn't get
Hmm.
the word "I love you," let's say those two, and a man
Right.
says that to a woman, and all of a sudden, or vice versa, and all of a sudden now the person's like, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do." Um, how, as a man, let's say I get that when I was younger, I don't even know, I wouldn't even know what to do. I panicked. I'm like, "Oh my God, this can't. I got to get out of this." I would
Well, that's
sabotage any
because you're
relationship.
not used to love and affection. So it
Right.
scares you. And this could be the attachment style where you push women away. You want love, so you go after it, and you're real affectionate, you're real romantic, and doing all the things. And then you finally have them, and then you like panic and you want to leave.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the avoidant.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So until the childhood trauma is healed, that personality style can go on forever.
Right.
That's why I have people in their 70s, and I do have men and women here, straight and LGBTQ, from 16 to 79.
You know, and
So,
so I never even thought about it, Rihanna, that someone as young as 16 to even 79, I can understand, in your 20s and 30s and maybe even 40s getting clients, but now you're getting clients in the 70s and as young as 16.
well,
How can,
remember,
yeah,
childhood trauma information wasn't known until the past 5 to 8 years.
yeah,
So people like, what's the matter? My picker is broken.
right,
Most people, unfortunately, they fall in love by chemistry. That's what they think love is. Oh, my heart is fluttering and they're hot. I'm in love with them. Totally wrong way to pick a partner. This is why if you don't pick the right one in dating, you're going to have a love relationship trauma afterwards. So you better know what you're doing. There's definitely an art and psychology to dating successfully. So if this is not healed, let's talk about how it shows up.
yeah,
Jealousy and control
yeah,
shows up when you don't feel good enough. That's usually the verbal messaging number two. And
mm,
trauma number seven, you were bullied, you were put down, you didn't fit in, you didn't feel good enough. So that's where jealousy and control comes from. Impulsivity, making risky choices, or like, I want that. So let's say the husband wants a shiny red sports car. They don't have the money. He doesn't care. He's going to buy it because it makes him feel good. And then he deals with the repercussion later and the depression, they can't pay for it, and the anger from the wife. But that impulse comes from feeling they got cheated or they didn't have enough as a kid. And now they want this status that they're better than. Maybe they were teased in school because they didn't have the right clothes or sneakers
Mm,
today. Kids need the certain this or the certain that to feel like they fit in. So somebody always going along and not feeling they had those things are more prone to impulse. Impulse is also the cheater. Oh, my wife didn't want me tonight. Well, the waitress does. I'm going to go off with her.
mm,
So it's more going into the narcissistic end, right, of childhood trauma
right.
because it's all about them.
Ah,
Okay, that's the higher end.
yeah.
A lot of women do people pleasing. And I've
You
heard
took the
of a
words out
woman,
of my mouth. I was going to bring that up.
men and women both do, but I had a woman that came to me and said, I do everything for my husband, cooking, cleaning, running all around for them. I never hear thank you. They never do anything for me. And when I complain about it, my husband says, well, I didn't ask you to do all that. But
Mm,
she knew if she had a difficult mother or father, if she grew up under that, if she did things like cleaning and cooking or taking care of the other kids, she wouldn't be yelled at that day. So that was her survival tool to get love, okay, by being a people pleaser. And now that's part of her subconscious. That's just what she knows. Um, Perfectionism. You see that a lot in men. They come home, they line up their wallet, their keys, their this, their that. It has to be in a row, which is a little OCD.
yeah.
Okay. So this is someone that grows up in a very uh like I would say a household that has a lot of hoarding or disheveled, right? Never cleaned. And, they want everything just so and everything very organized. So that is someone that tends to grow up, in a house that was not, you know.
Yeah.
Addiction can come from these things, like it's drinking to escape, not feeling that they fit in, right? Imposter syndrome. A lot of our actors and singers have imposter syndrome. That comes from also not feeling good enough. So these are just a few. If you did grow up with the abandonment issues, like you said, you can also see codependency where they're holding on so tight.
Yeah.
We hear often, oh, that's a clinger. They're holding on so tight. They always have to hold your hand. They always need to be touching you. And that gets suffocating for someone who has self-esteem and doesn't need that constant reassurance. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, and they're like, want to push you away. So that codependency, love addiction, with something called RRS, relationship repetition syndrome. So this can show up in two ways, going for the same type of person over and over and over again. And after the breakup, you read 300 self help books. And it's like, I got it this time. And you go back and it's like, dang, it's the same kind of person.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Right.
Or breaking, like your conscious mind says, I know he's no good for me. So I'm going to break up with him. And then it lasts 7 to 10 days and you're writing each other, then you get back. Then you
Mm,
break up again, and then you get back. And the average, according to research, is 7 times people do this, the
yeah.
breaking up and getting back together. So it's very toxic. And the grace period of not talking to each other is usually 7 to about 10 days.
Yeah.
And then the subconscious is craving the love so much that they're like, well, at least they love me somewhat, and I'm going back, but they never
Mm,
treated them right. So
right.
this starts a whole cycle of domestic violence. So it can get really bad, and this is what we call a toxic relationship. But not only does childhood trauma impact us in dating and sustaining those relationships, you need to have the art of communication to get through issues,
Yeah.
right? Because there will always be issues. There's two different people, two different opinions, and that's perfectly fine. But you need to have the skills to negotiate through those issues. And childhood trauma also impacts 7 areas of our life. So it's
Wow.
really, really important that that gets solved sooner than later.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So, does self-awareness ever come into play from your coaching, your
Yes.
your clients? Because for me, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess I could say, it was in my 30s when I spoke to my mother. When I spoke to
Mhm.
her, and then she told me what happened, I'm going to tell you, whatever anger I had, it was just
Yeah,
lifted. I was like, oh, okay, cool, no problem. But again,
right.
because of what my parents went through and my siblings went through, I realized I was lucky by being raised by my grandparents, uh,
Yeah,
because what they went through, I didn't want to go through, the
yeah.
separation, the bad relationships they had. Now, my relationships weren't any better because if I felt love from a woman, I ran away. But again, I started getting self-aware when I was in my 30s, early 40s, and things like that.
Mhm.
Do you, when you talk to your clients, and you talk to them about being self-aware, is there any pushback against that, or no? What do you mean? Can you
No,
describe that? Okay.
because they invest, and any investment with me as their coach, because I'm a licensed mental health counselor and I'm a certified coach, is a complete tax deduction. So they
Okay.
are paying their investment with me to get healed. They
Yeah.
want to heal this mess. They want emotionally healthy, conscious love. They don't want to keep picking bad partners because
Yeah.
what happens, and a lot of the men, but also a lot of women, they get financially ripped off, or they're with the narcissist, or they're constantly cheated on, and they can't understand, what am I doing wrong? And I get that. I was in their shoes. It's like, I'm a nice lady. I work hard. I'm a great mom. What is it that I'm picking wrong people for?
Yeah.
And because nobody explained it, not even in a triple master's of psychology. So once I understood it from my research, I'm like, wow, you can't change what you don't know or understand.
Right.
So that is my quote for my company.
Yeah.
And, people want to know, how do I heal this stuff? What am I doing? How do I fix it? So what we're really doing is overwriting the subconscious with
Mm.
conscious behaviors and negating and eliminating the norms, the behavioral norms that don't serve them anymore. They're dysfunctional. They are a coping mechanism that a young child used because we didn't know any better. So
Yeah.
maybe shutting down, I'm not going to talk if they're mad because I'll get hit again. So when the woman's saying to her husband, will you please talk to me and talk through this? And he's shutting down and then going to the room and slamming his doors because he knew, I better just shut down and be quiet, which
Yeah.
we call passive aggressive, an
Mm.
unhealthy behavior. Where did he learn that? From childhood. I better not speak. She's going to keep yelling at me, or I'm going to get in more trouble, right? So they shut down. They don't have the communication skills. And it's not healthy to push your partner when they're upset either. So there's ways to get through all this. You have to learn all this. That's why my coaching is a teaching model. And we work together as a team. So I have a 150-page workbook. So what my clients fill out, I read it. I know where they need exact help. So then I help them back. So we are always back and forth. And as they're thinking things over, like I catch things really quick. Like you said, well, I live with my grandparents. I'm like, okay, that's one,
Yeah.
you
You
know.
identify it really quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been doing this over 24 years, right? So yeah, it's important that your coach is what we call a CCTP, certified clinical trauma professional. And
Okay.
I'm the advanced level, and you can't even become that unless you're a licensed mental health counselor, because this is a mental health issue.
Yeah.
Mental health used to have a stigma, but anxiety is mental health. Depression, everybody goes through bouts of depression. It's normal, but it's still mental health, right? So we have to get the mental health emotionally healthy and happy and joyful. And you have to know the skills. First, we have to have the self love, heal your own childhood trauma. As a matter of fact, Will, on my website, rianamilne.com, there is 4 free love tests. And one of them is, are you really ready to date?
Mhm.
And it's a 10-question, 1 to 10 survey, real easy to take. And it tells you if you're really ready to go out and date yet. And if you're not, this is part of the roadmap that I use to help my clients heal. They have to get that score sheet up to an 8, 9, or 10 before they start dating. So when someone works with me, the first part of it is healing the trauma, rewriting the story. And what you described is, I went to my mother and I asked what happened. So in your mind, you rewrote the story. It wasn't they gave you up or they didn't want you. It's just that there was family struggle and this was the safest, best place for you to be. Now you can rewrite that story and find some forgiveness and understanding spiritually to let it go. But there's still more work behind it, but that's just a small example. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's other trauma recovery skills that my clients use. And as they're learning them, they start practicing them. It's like a rainbow. So there's this big learning curve. And then they're starting to get it up at the top and they're doing great. And they start going out and then it becomes so easy. Then they're like, I'm afraid to date in the beginning. I don't want to date again. I'm going to get hurt. I've been through 5 guys that abused me. I get it. That's
Right.
before you met me. That's not going to happen, you know, because we have to recognize their patterns. What were they going for? And why were they going for that? And it all comes down to the childhood trauma dynamics. It's fascinating work.
No, it is. I mean, like I said, once I decided to talk to my mother about it, like I say, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And like you said, but there was more work to be done. First of all, Rihanna, I could talk to you about like another 2, 3 hours. This is like fascinating stuff. Talk more about your coaching.
Sure. Basically, the way I start with everyone, I have to do an assessment which
Right.
analyzes the past. I look at what are the childhood traumas that they had, if they're ready to date, what were the red flags in their last relationship, and the ACOA checklist, adult child of an alcoholic or other trauma. So
Mhm.
I do these assessments plus my own Q&A sheet, and we meet actually for 2 hours. So I can really dissect what is going on, what's been happening, what are their patterns, and then we have a plan to move forward. And they get to choose whether they'd like me to coach with them or not, and we move forward. And that's what we do. But they have to have the assessment so I know it's a good fit for me because
Yeah.
I only take a few VIPs at one time because I give really stellar service. So I can't have like 30 or 40 people. I take like 7 at one
Wow.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really limit my numbers to those that really want to be with me. So my clients are dream clients. They really want it. They know they need it. They know they deserve good love and they are ready to date more intelligently, which we call conscious dating. So they need to know what to do, who's a good pick and who is not, and why. And then
Mm.
they just keep moving forward. And if there's low self-esteem and someone ghosts them, usually they're like, oh, I'm not good enough. People, I don't want to be back online. They hurt my feelings. It's like, no, you don't want that one. God's just telling you that's not a good one. Next, so you get a whole different kind of attitude about dating and going out there. But now they're going out with confidence. They know what to look for. They have their list of what it is that they're looking for in a great partner. It's funny, I was out with a bunch of friends last night, and I have a fabulous boyfriend. And he gave me a gorgeous ring, 4 months in for Christmas. And they're like, man, you really must know what you're doing. It's like, how do you have this guy taking you all over the place and cruises and concerts? And I said, because I know exactly what I wanted.
Yeah,
And
that's
he
the
knew
key.
what he wanted. And the way I wrote my profile, there is an art to dating successfully. I
Yeah.
actually have a course like that, the art and psychology of dating successfully. It's a self-study. So people can do that way, or they can coach with me one-on-one. But also at my website, there is a free ebook right at the top of the page, How to Have the Love You Deserve, the 4 free love tests. There's free book chapter downloads. The best one for this dating show is Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to
Yeah.
Have the Love You Deserve. But the sister book is Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Power, Purpose, and Success. Because you have to be that first to have the same kind of partner that you attract,
Yeah.
right? So they go together. They're called sister books. They're meant to be read together. So there's like the first 60 pages of those, a lot of articles. And then my podcast is called Lessons in Life and Love with Coach Riana Milne. I have 120 shows now. So they're on every podcast platform, but probably the best place is my YouTube,
Yeah, I was going to ask you
which
that.
has
Yeah.
audios and videos there. I think I have 350 tapes and videos on there. So that's just under Riana Milne.
No, sounds
Mhm.
good. And tell us that website one more time where people can find you.
Yeah, it's my name,
Okay.
RianaMilne.com.
Yep. And I'll definitely put
R
that in the show notes.
I A N A M I L N E.com.
That
Yeah,
sounds good. Well, Rihanna, again, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I really, really appreciate it.
you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Bye bye.